Do you have a trigger when it starts to creep in for you?
I know one thing that I use. So before I go on any big stage, before I go in any big competition, one thing that I call it my performance statement, but one thing that I say is, and it's super simple, but it's super empowering for me, is, Sandy, you were born for this. And dang, I just think that, and I'm like, it's go time. I'm ready to go crush this course. I'm ready to go rock this stage. I'm going to go change lives. I'm going to go set records. But for me, it's just really simple. And it's something that just puts me in that really empowering, confident mindset.
Have you ever faced so many obstacles that chasing your dreams felt impossible? On this episode of Navigating No, I sit down with Sandy Zimmerman. Sandy is a Hall of Fame teacher, national judo champion, former Gonzaga basketball star, and American Ninja Warrior. From a childhood filled with hardship to becoming a Ninja Warrior is incredible. And her story proves that no matter the odds, with determination and a clear vision, you can achieve greatness. Get ready to be motivated and inspired by the unstoppable Sandy Zimmerman on Navigating No. This is going to be awesome. That's super awesome. Did you stop? Well, you still compete. Like, I noticed that.
In Ninja Warrior?
In Judo.
Oh, in Judo? I haven't in a long time. When I started Ninja, it was just so hard to keep all of it going, and then I didn't want to get hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I still was when I was still teaching, it was actually my students' favorite unit. They loved it. We'd get done. There was 2 favorite units we would do, and we'd get done. So Judo was one of them. They absolutely, it is, well, you've done it, Marsh, you've done it. The lessons that come in that were so powerful, and kids would just we'd get done and they'd be like, when are we doing Judo again? I'm like, we literally just finished that unit. So it was, I have so many cool stories about that. Like one kid that the classroom teachers were having a really hard time with him. And apparently he'd been kicked out of soccer league because he was pushing, shoving, violent with kids. And so he got kicked out of soccer league. Classroom teachers are like, we're just having such a hard time with this kid. We're having such a hard time with this kid. And so I said, well, I don't have a hard time with him in PE class. Let me just, see if I can work some magic. And so our Judo unit was coming up, and the teachers were like, you can't have him do Judo. You can't have him do Judo. He's gotten kicked out of soccer because he's violent.
Too violent, yeah.
And I said, here's the thing. I could be wrong, but I think it will actually really help him. And so I said, I need you guys to just trust me on this and let him do the unit and let me see if I'm right. And so we do the unit, and oh man, it gets me actually choked up thinking about it. But so we were working on holds and pins, and we're doing this where...
I hope you're getting this, because this is a good one. Are we?
I'm recording, yeah.
Oh, you're recording. All right.
But
My God, that's awesome. I love that.
So,
I guess I should ask her one more time. But.
We could do that. So we're working on pins, and we're doing kind of a round robin. And so I, tell the kids, okay, we're working on case katami. Make sure you're going around the backside so it's not near the front of the neck. It's safe, and give them all those instructions. And we're doing kind of a round robin. You're going to do it on someone, and then you're going to switch, and they're going to hold you. And then I'm going to say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You got to quickly find somebody else. Because part of Judo, honestly, is the social aspect and also the physical touch. That it's a safe way to do that. Because I had a feeling in my gut that this kid did not know what safe physical touch was.
Yeah.
Or just needed that physical touch. We all need that, right? And so I was like, and I think he needs to learn what's a safe way and not a safe way.
Yeah.
And so we're doing round robin, and I'm keeping an eye on him, though, because I thought if this goes south, I am going to lose my job. Because all these teachers already told me, Sandy, don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. And I thought, my gut's saying it's going to be all right. So we're doing round robin, and I'm watching him like a hawk. I do like my job. I do need a paycheck. And so it's going fine. We do about 3 rounds, and then I look out on the 4th round, and he has round robined and picked the smallest, littlest, dainty girl in the entire class. And I thought, holy hell, I'm going to get fired.
Yeah.
But I thought, no, my gut is just saying this isn't going to be okay. So he gets her in a hold in the most gentle case katami I've ever seen. And she goes to wiggle out. He lets her flip him over and counter it so she can get him in the case katami. And I'm almost over there crying because I think this is him learning how to safely have an outlet for that physicality. And he just did it against the daintiest little girl in this class. And I'm just like, I was right. And it was just the kid at the beginning of that unit to the kid after it. He was just happy and joyful, and he'd found this incredible outlet. But I think part of it, I didn't even know, I think part of it was the physical touch.
Yeah.
He needed that. He just needed human touch, and we all do.
Well, especially post-COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like
Yeah.
we forgot what
Yeah.
it was like to be able to do that. I think one of the other things is, as an instructor, is that when you realize what it feels like, then it gives you a different perspective. Like, oh, that choke hurts when it's applied, and it only takes me 5 seconds to go black out, right? And so it's like, oh, but if I push it, if you and I are punching with each other, we're throwing, and one of my favorite things growing up was when one of the instructors would say, go 50%. Well, my 50% is different than your 50%, right? And sometimes some of the Shodans would throw way faster. I was like, that is not 50% in my line, right? Like, I kind of throw down onto a knee, right? And so it's like, it's neat because it's that soft way. It's that give, that touch, and it's like, acceptance, contraction, expansion, right? And I think that that's great. So would you say that do you still stay in touch with that boy?
I haven't. I don't know. I'm not teaching anymore, so I haven't stayed in that realm. But I'd be curious to see, because that was something I told the teacher. I said, I think you should talk to his parents, and I think he needs to get in judo. Even though you all are so afraid that he's going to learn some skills and hurt some people, I think it will actually teach him how to do that safely. And so I'd be really curious to see what happened. I know he had kind of a tough home life, so there might be some barriers there. But, one thing that we talked a lot about in judo, and even in that, is mutual benefit and welfare. Mutual benefit and welfare. And so when you're going against someone, that was something that we talked about. If you're going against someone, and you know this, if you're going against someone who's about the same as you, same size, same rank and belt, you can get after it. You can get after it and really try to push each other. But if I'm a black belt and I got this white belt that's walked in, that's learning the sport, I'm not going to go with the same intensity. Or if it's someone that's younger or older, there's some gap there. And so we talk a lot about mutual benefit and welfare in that. And I think, boy, doesn't that apply to everything?
Sure.
Everything that we do is that, I love that quote of, a rising tide lifts all boats. And I think that really is the epitome of when I think about my life and what I want it to do and the people I want around me, is like, we're in this together. And that mutual benefit and welfare is a huge value of mine and one of my core beliefs, that we all rise together. And, that's a driving force behind me and behind what I do.
Well, and it's this system that most people don't take advantage of, or they don't know how to take advantage of. And it's like being vulnerable enough to be able to be lifted up, especially when you're around other people that are better than you, or are higher rank, or have more experience. And it's like, if you're willing to ask for that help, people really do want to help you. Would you say that martial arts has given you the foundation that is necessary for you to see things differently? Or is that one of the main factors that it gives you the energy to continue going? Like, what life lessons did you really learn taken away from your dojo or one of your instructors, your sensei?
There's so many life lessons, and I am trying to pick and choose maybe
Isn't
a
that
couple.
amazing? Yeah.
Oh, I think every parent should get their kid into martial art, the life lessons. One immediately that I thought of as you were asking that is in judo, if people don't know a lot about the sport, is that you literally are trying to throw your opponent on their back as hard as you can with as much force and as flat as you can.
100%, not 50%.
Yes, right. And then if that doesn't work, you're doing submissions, chokes, arm bars, you're pitting them. And I think the premise of that sport just so paralleled my life. And I think I really had to, in that sport, learn how to get knocked down, literally get choked out, and pick myself back up, learn from it, dust myself off, and go back to work. And I just look at my life, and that was the cards I was dealt as a child. And what's funny is now what I've learned as an adult, though, is now I almost seek those opportunities to get knocked down because I know I'm going to learn, I'm going to grow, and I'm going to rise up, and it's going to make me better. And so it's really interesting. As a child, I didn't ask for it. I didn't ask for that and what was dealt to me. But it's really funny now. It's become such a way of life of like, that's just how it goes. If you want to learn, if you want to get really good at something, you have to take those shots. You got to fall down, and then you learn from it. And it's like, I don't know, I guess I now as an adult think it's kind of like an experiment. I'm constantly doing experiments. All right, tried that. That did not go well. What could I learn from it? And let's go on. And so I think judo really taught me that ability to bounce back quickly, to find the lesson in it, and then stay in attack mode. And to not stay there. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I heard Sensei, it's like, you get knocked down, you just don't have to stay there. Or the phrase he used to like to say, it's like, fall off the horse, all you gotta do is get back on. It's just like, you have to get back on one more time, then you fall off. And it like, oh, well, you put it that way, that seems simple.
Yeah, because eventually you're gonna get to it, right? It's like, unfortunately, that's with gambling too. All I gotta do is win one more time and I'll do it. Well, I had a similar background. Like we both came back from judo backgrounds and such. And as a kid, I got picked on and made fun of and bullied all the time. And when I first met my martial arts instructor, my judo instructor as well, he told me that I will teach you, because growing up in the 70s and the 80s, everybody wanted to be a ninja. And you are a ninja warrior, but I'm talking about like old school Japanese in my black dogi uniform with a mask, even wearing my tabi shoes. And so I wanted to be a ninja, and I didn't know what cost it was going to take for me to get to that. But I knew if you had a black belt, you could kick somebody else's butt. And I remember the first day that I met my instructor, I went out to Washington State University, WSU, and there was a judo tournament, and I watched as a spectator. And then I mean, it was just like, they had the ninja weapons out there. It was the coolest thing growing up in the 80s. And when I met my instructor, he had already talked to my father about me being bullied and being picked on and getting in fights. And he said, I will teach you how to punch and kick, but first I'm going to teach you how to fall. And I at that moment, I was like, I was an 8-year-old kid, and I was like, well, I already know how to fall pretty well. It's not that hard. I just kind of put a foot forward and I accidentally fall. But for the first 2 months, I learned how to do a forward roll. I learned how to fall backwards. I learned how to fall back. I mean, I was black and blue for 2 months learning. And I thought the first day I walked into that dojo, I was going to be doing ninja spinning kicks like Bruce Lee with his arms up and down and like Chuck Norris. And that was the farthest thing. And it was like I had to learn to fall in order to move forward and start to learn all those lessons. And I love that you're like, well, it teaches me these lessons because we all suck at things at the beginning. And I was this little like 60-pound stick with lips, and that was all I was. And I was so timid and scared, but it gave me the foundation necessary. And it sounds like that was very similar to you.
And a foundation physically and mentally. Don't you think?
Yes. I think that my parents put me into karate and into judo because they thought that it was going to boost my confidence. And that was like taking a kid who couldn't swim and throwing him into a pool and saying, you got to learn to swim, right? Because I didn't know. I was so scared. I was so nervous, and I was so like apprehensive of doing this. Like, oh, I don't want to fight, but now I've got to go learn how to fight. And I learned how to fight by practicing how to fight people, right? And I was so scared of doing it. And I realized that as you step up to, let's say, a tournament, and you step up and you bow to the referee and you bow to your opponent, when you step to that line, I realized I started to look at things a little more objectively, and I saw it as confidence isn't a born trait. It's something that you learn or you gain from that experience. And it was like every time I stepped to that line and I bowed and I heard Hajime, it got a little easier. It got a little better. And every time since then, I started to apply that in all things in our lives. And it's like I see things much differently. Like we're so apprehensive about hearing that no or being rejected or failing. It's like we're going to suck. At the beginning, we are. It's going to hurt. It might cost a lot of money, but it's like eventually you are going to get better at it. And it's like being able to take that and apply it to all the things. I think it's so beneficial. And I would, just like what you said, I would suggest anybody to get their kids in martial arts, whether it is they are a little violent or not. It really does teach that yin yang system on going back and forth. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Oh man, that is just so that's gold right there. I'm just listening going, I should be writing this down. It made
I think we're going to do a book together. I think it's what we're going to do.
We at least need to get on a stage together.
Yes, that's right.
As you're saying that, it just makes me think of how many times parents will say, like, I want my kid to be resilient. I want my kid to be gritty. I want my kid, to have all these qualities. Yet, and I will say I've been guilty of this as a parent at times. And we set up these lives for our kids that are easy. And we don't want to put them through hard things, and we don't want to see them fail, and we don't want to see them struggle. And it makes me think of a time in our backyard. So I'm up
where
in
you
the
have
kitchen.
your own American Ninja Warrior setup.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm up in the kitchen, and we were probably a couple years into this whole ninja journey, and my kids have joined me in this journey too. And so I'm up in the kitchen that has a window it looks out onto our ninja fortress. And, we have over 40 obstacles. Well, one of the newest obstacles we had just built at that time were called deviled steps. So you have these layered steps, and you, fingertips only, are going up these steps, and you have to go up a series of steps, and you have to go down.
Yeah.
And it's a hard obstacle, completely upper body, no legs, you're dangling by your fingertips. And so I'm in the kitchen cleaning, and I'm looking out to the yard, and it was beginning of June when we put these up. And my little daughter, Lindsay, who was about probably 9 at the time, is hanging on to that bottom step. And that's where she had started, right at the beginning of June. And she would, everything she could, she'd get up one step.
Yeah.
And then just burn out and drop. And then a couple weeks would go by, and that kid would go out there every day. So there she is now. She's on the second step. And then she's all of a sudden on the third step. And so this was at the end of August when I'm up in the kitchen cleaning up after dinner, and I see her out there, and she's just struggling up that thing again. And everything in me wanted to go out there and go, Lindsay, it's enough.
Yeah.
It's enough. You have worked on this all summer.
I thought you were going to boost her up.
You're good. You're fine. Look at the progress you've already made. You don't have to make it to the top. It's like, you're good. And it was like it took every little bit of my discipline to not go out there and just say, it's enough, Linz. You're good. You struggled at this for 3 months, girl. Like, it's amazing what you've done. You're fine. And something in me just said, Sandy, don't you dare go out there. Don't you dare go out there. So I'm like, okay. So I keep cleaning. I'm looking, and I'm looking down, and I'm like, all of a sudden I hear this. I did it. And I look out there, and she is dangling from the top step, and she has finally made it. And I thought, holy hell, Sandy, you almost stole that moment from her. You almost stole that moment from her, because it's so hard to watch your kids struggle. But then I sat there and I thought, oh my gosh, what has she just learned?
Yeah.
That I can do hard things, that I can stick with something difficult over a long period of time, and I can see it through and get to that magical moment. I almost robbed her of that moment. And so it is hard and difficult, but I think back to what you were saying, can you grow confidence? Absolutely. I was a shy, quiet, timid kid who struggled in school. I mean, I did not speak unless spoken to. And I say that, and people are like, really? Confidence is learned.
Yeah.
Resilience is learned. Grit is learned. But do we want to put ourselves in situations where we can grow that? I mean, it's just like anything else. I want this bicep strong. I got to do bicep curls, right?
You got to do your reps.
Yeah.
You got to put your reps in.
Yep. You got to get some reps in all of it. And so I think sometimes we look at the struggle and we look at the failure in such a negative way, but that's really the only way, isn't it? I don't know any other way. I mean, maybe some people, God bless them, that are the ones that are like, they do it on the first try. Well, good for them, but that's not me.
No.
That is not my method. And I am the struggle, learn, get knocked down, struggle and learn, and then eventually have that magical moment. And really, I think back on like, God, what is my secret? And I think, honestly, it's just I'm willing to stick with it longer than what anybody else is.
Well, I love that story because you mentioned that when you were doing the dead hang for your American Ninja Warrior competition, right? And you were against, you got on and it was the dead hang and you're on there for a minute and then 2 minutes, 3, 4, and I think it was by minute 6 you look over and there's only one guy left, right? And it was for $10, and you were just like, no, I can hang literally with this. And you were able to put yourself in that position. You were able to overcome that by just telling yourself mentally that I've got this and I can do this, and you were able to stick it out longer than other people.
Yeah. But I will tell you, I was this close to not even doing it. And I think back on that moment.
You
I'm
mean
like,
showing up to the competition?
All of it, even with the dead hang, even after I had that, got out of the car, I was so proud of myself. I did my first ninja competition. Even the dead hang, just I almost didn't do it because I thought I've never done a dead hang.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that unknown outcome. How will this go? And then I thought, dang it, Sandy, you just got out of the car and showed up for your first ninja comp. Get on the stupid bar and let's just see what happens. But even that, I think that unknown outcome, and it's something I am working on. I think sometimes my default definitely is to go back to the insecure, not confident Sandy. And that's my default. So I have to work really hard at staying in that confident mindset. And so that was just, and it's constant. It's constant. I think I will probably always have that default, and it will always be something I'm working on. But we can, with practice, get better at realizing, like, is this the side of me that's the timid, shy part that is bubbling up? Or is this coming from a real confident, strong, powerful, empowering side of me? And so even in that dead hang, I look back on that, I was like, I almost didn't do that. I almost didn't go into that competition, which was the catalyst for, I think, the whole journey. I almost didn't do the dead hang, which, man, that's a darn good story.
Yeah,
and
it
I've
is.
still got
Yes,
that
it is.
$10 bill
Yeah, and you
framed
have
on
it
my
framed,
dresser.
right? I love that. Well, I think what really resonates with that is the fact that it's a constant battle, right? It is a constant battle. And I just want to hit on one thing. It's like some of the best martial artists aren't the jocks. They aren't the quarterback from this. It's the person who was an introvert. It was the person who was overweight. It was the person who was gangly. It was like, they're some of the best. And it's just like, you're going to suck at some things and you're going to prosper at other things. And it's like, if you can keep practicing the things that you're not good at, then you eventually become good at it, because now you're good and you don't suck at them anymore, right? And that's where that practice comes in. But it's like, what I love what you just said is the fact that it's a constant struggle. Because just like you and me, it's like we're constantly told no. We're constantly rejected, fail at things. And it's like we have this self-doubt, this imposter syndrome that creeps in all the time. And it's like, how do you talk yourself out of it? And it's like people aren't alone. I think a big problem is that people see, oh, Sandy Zimmerman was like American Ninja Warrior. Oh, she is this. She has well, you're only seeing the end result. Nobody knows all of the sacrifice, the sweat, the blood, the tears that you've gone into to prep for that, all those conversations that you had with yourself, right? And it's like everybody sees the end result, and nobody knows the work that's been required to do so. And people quit way before. And I know this is going to hit home with you. It's like everyone thinks that when they become a black belt or Shodan, that's it. And that is, I think, the basic fundamental understanding of everything. It's like, that's when you start to really take off. That's when you learn how to apply all the things. And then when you get to like your Sandan or your Yodan, that's when you start to be able to teach people. And the Japanese believe that when you can teach someone, then you really understand it. You are a master of that fundamental. And it's like, I think people have to understand that you're not alone, and everybody, this is a constant thing that people are always being questioned or failing at things. And it's like, you can't be afraid, even when you hear that inner voice. And it's like, no, I've got to find that and move forward. When it does creep in, do you have a trigger that you kind of talk to yourself? That you're like, this is my mechanism. Did you ever see Over the Top with Sylvester Stallone? He was an arm wrestler.
Oh, okay.
He's being interviewed for this arm wrestling, and he's like, well, they were like, how are you a good arm wrestler? And he goes, well, I just take my hat and I turn it around, and once I do that, I become a machine and I become unbeatable. And so that's always resonated with me. I don't take my hat, but it's like when I hear no, I turn it to on. Right, I switch the letters to on, as in I'm going to prove this person wrong. I'm going to prove to myself that I can do it. I'm going to prove to the world that I'm the right person. And it's like, do you have a trigger when it starts to creep in for you?
I know one thing that I use. So before I go on any big stage, before I go in any big competition, one thing that I call it my performance statement. But one thing that I say is, and it's super simple, but it's super empowering for me, is, Sandy, you were born for this. And dang, I just think that, and I'm like, it's go time. I'm ready to go crush this course. I'm ready to go rock this stage. I'm going to go change lives. I'm going to go set records. But for me, it's just really simple. And it's something that just puts me in that really empowering, confident mindset. And I do believe it with all my heart when I do those things. It's like, Sandy, you were born for this. And I was. Has it taken me a long time to get here? It has. Do I still have a long ways to go? Yes. I hope that when I'm at the end of my life, I'm still trying to learn and grow and get better. I don't see it as a destination, but I have come a long way. And so those are right now the places that I know where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to be doing. And so that is I just call it my performance statement. And so if you go back, and it's funny, if you watch me, if someone saw me backstage or someone saw me, if you watch now the show, you'll see my lips moving. And that's me back there going, Sandy, you were born for this. And then it usually always makes me smile.
Oh,
so
that's
people can go back
awesome.
and watch the show now and see that. And now that'll let you in on what's happening in my head. But when that doubt creeps up, because it does, it absolutely does. There are times where, I'll be out there about to do my run and I start wondering, like, what am I doing? I'm too old for this. I can't compete against these young kids, or do I
Spring
have the
chickens.
skill sets
Yeah.
to do this? All these little doubts come in, and then I'm just like, Sandy, you were born for this. And then it's like, it's time to go rock this.
That's your trigger.
Yeah. And the same thing on a stage, there's times, or if I'm sharing a stage with big time speakers, I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? These are like real speakers, and here I am. And it's just the same thing that I feel like this is what I was born to do. And I have let, but my circumstances, it's just been, I think, you talk about no's, and I think my circumstances said no for a long time, and the statistics of coming from where I did said no. And I just thought, you know what? I'm going to write my own story. And I'm going to determine how this is going to end. And I've been doing that my whole life, and with different aspects. And not just, with the athletics I've been able to do, but, change in my teaching career, and then switching to my speaking career, and now as an author, and, all these different hats as a mom and as a wife, and, it's just all of those things. I've taken those no's that maybe my circumstance said that's not possible for you to create a stable, healthy home with kids that are loved, cared for, and safe. Statistically, probably not. The odds weren't real great coming from where I came from. I didn't see that example. But I guess for me, it's just always you have the power to create the story and write the story and rewrite the story if you don't like how it was written. And that's what I get to do with my life. I take all those no's, and it's like fuel. And sometimes too, I when I think about your no, and I was thinking about all the no's, I've had so many no's in my life.
Sure.
So many no's. And I think for me, usually a no is a not yet for me, or a no is a no because I have something even better than you're imagining for you. And so I guess my view with no is not a real negative no. I mean, I won't lie. Sometimes those no's, they hurt.
Yeah.
And they sting. And honestly, they really suck sometimes.
Yeah.
It's
like
not
a slap
good
across
feeling.
your face. Nobody
Yes.
likes that.
Yes. And that's when you're in that moment, right? But when I've zoomed out and looked at the big picture, and I'll look back at that no, I'm like, oh, thank God that was a no. It was only a no, not yet, because I wasn't ready.
Well, it opened up new avenues, different opportunities. And it was like, you talk about, I would define it also as like a door that has been slammed in your face that's locked, and you just haven't figured out how to unlock it. But if you really want to get in through that, you will find a way through that. And we both have had knee problems. I blew out my ACL, and I've had 6 knee surgeries. And the last time that I did it, I was training in Tokyo, and I remember when it blew out, I knew it immediately. My foot came up and hit me upside the head, and I was like, oh, I blew my knee out again. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, please be a dream. Please be a dream. Please be a dream. And then it was not a dream. And I told my friend that. He goes, well, what happened? I go, well, as soon as it happened, I just started saying, please be a dream, please be a dream. He goes, well, why did you want it to be a dream? And I go, because in a dream, you wake up and then it's better. And he goes, yeah, but in that dream, you have to wait until you wake up. And it really hit home with me because we write our own story. And if you don't like your dream, it's your choice to change that dream. And how you look at those no's really makes a difference. And you can say, oh, that person's overly optimistic, or that person's just a positive person, or like, oh, they're motivated. It's like, you have to look at those no's objectively and not take them personally. Because, I mean, when people tell us no, it usually isn't about us. They care more about themselves, right? What their bottom line is in some way or another, right? And so it's like when you fail or when you hit that no, it actually motivates me. And I'm hearing that from you. I'm absolutely taking that from you. Like, even though all the cards are stacked against me, you've come to realize, like, it's up to me. And if I can talk to my inner voice and say, Sandy, you were born to do this, that's your trigger. And it seems to work. Have you told anybody that, like, when you teach kids at the school, because you're still a PE teacher, correct?
I'm not teaching anymore.
You're not teaching anymore.
So I did both for a while, and I just really felt this pull that, like, Sandy, teaching was wonderful and you impacted a lot of lives, but now I need you to go impact more lives through speaking. And so I balanced both for a while, and I fought it because I will say, having a steady income and health care and insurance and retirement and all those things are a wonderful thing. And I still loved it. So that was really hard. It would have been easier if I was just like, I feel done with this and I'm ready for the next chapter. But I still loved the kids. And I worked with military kids. So it was just incredible. It was like a dream job. But I just couldn't shake this feeling that I was supposed to speak. So I tried to do both. And I knew in my gut that I could not do both well and how I wanted to. And I knew that I had to leave. And that was a really hard decision. And also talk about unknown outcome, figuring out how to get that business going. But I just knew the other choice would be to live with regret and wonder. And that to me is far worse than learning how
right
to
now.
Yes,
being rejected right now. Well, I know personally that you do belong on that stage with the big time speakers, because you talk about that imposter syndrome. It's like the first time that you're up with this A-lister, or you follow behind them, or you're before them. It's like, oh, and you're scared. But I know your message, and I know for a fact that you do belong up on that stage. And the reason that I know that is because you talk about the perfect navigating no. You and I actually met applying for a TEDx. And this
You're not
story,
still holding this against
no,
me, are you?
I'm not resentful at all, right? Because this actually, I turned it to a positive, right? But it's like, and I got you on the podcast, and I want you to share this message because I know you're making this difference. But it's interesting you and I met because I applied for a TEDx in Spokane, and I was moving to Spokane, and a buddy of mine was like, hey, you should apply to it while you're over in Seattle. I came in for finals, and there were, I think, 12 of us or something like that in the room, and we weren't given any information on like what we were going to talk about other than like pitch you and pitch whatever. And I'm like, all right, I've got this. I've spoken for major corporations, C-level. I've done that. I do this for a living. Like, I've written a book. I've got all of this. I've got my story's unique. Nobody's going to not like this story. And you get up and you tell my story. And I'm like, there is no way. This woman is an American Ninja Warrior champion, the first woman to hit the buzzer. She is a speaker. She gets up. She has overcome every obstacle. She's a judo champion. The person that changed the trajectory of her life was her martial arts instructor, her sensei. I'm like, well, that's my story. Now what do I talk about? And I knew it at that moment. I'm like, she got this. Like, I am not going to get selected for this. And you did get it. And I went home and I told my wife, I was like, man, I just got destroyed. And she goes, well, what do you mean? I go, this lady got up and told the story. And she was like, there's no way that just happened. I go, I swear. And so it was that no that I received. You got a yes. But then at the same time, I took that no and I was like, well, what can I learn? What can I improve? And what can I do? And out of it came a friendship between the two of us. Out of it came a podcast. Out of it came an amazing story where I even to this day have to navigate no's. And you and I both still navigate our no's. And that's how we met. And I think it's just a great story because I know that it is going to send you, I mean, it was a platform for you to be able to go to your next chapter, right? Moving from schools and such. And it's like getting into your next chapter to being able to have a platform where you can reach that many more people. I'm super excited for everything that you're doing. If you were to talk to, if you were able to see those kids again and you were able to talk to your younger self or those kids, what is the one thing that you would tell them was most important to navigate a no, a rejection, a failure, or a self-doubt? What would be that one thing that you would tell those kids if you had the opportunity to go back to that school and have all of those classes that you've taught, all those kids that you've made some kind of an impact for? What's the one thing that you would give them?
I would say, I think it comes back to that thought that Sensei planted all those years ago when I had in my mind that poor girls who grow up on welfare and spend time in the foster care system and that endure abuse and neglect and have the cards stacked against them, that it doesn't matter. That it doesn't matter where you come from, what you've been through, what you're going through, that we can all dream big dreams. And when Sensei said, Sandy, you could go to the Olympics, that for me was such a huge turning point in how I saw myself. I thought, how powerful is that we can do that for people? Mm-hmm. To just breathe a little bit of hope, to just breathe a little bit of belief. And even if they don't have it or feel it yet, that we can do that for other people. And I think back on that, and it was such a huge catalyst for my crazy big dreams and goals, because at that point, I had the bar really low for myself, really low. And I think Sensei's belief in me, like just for a moment when he said that, it was almost like I could see myself through his eyes. And I remember just kind of questioning it like, am I really special? Am I really lovable and worthy? Because when I see myself through Sensei eyes, mm-hmm. I am. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, then what is it that I'm here to do? And I think one thing that I would want all people to know, students or adults, is that I really believe, another core belief of mine, is that we all have a unique gift and talent and that we're here for a reason. And man, can you imagine how incredible the world would be if we worked our tail off to develop that mm-hmm. unique gift and talent and then gave it out to the world to use and the lives that would be impacted by that. And so I think it starts with that belief. And we can get there eventually, I think, and that's when it's really powerful, when that belief comes from ourselves. But when it's not there in somebody, we can also help bring that out mm-hmm. from other people, which is what Sensei did for me.
Well, and it's like, I think that hits so hard, from my martial arts background, having a sensei and senpais, like the higher end students that take on the kohai, the young student. And it's like surrounding yourself around people that believe in you is so powerful. And they can see your talent, but maybe you can't. And it's like being able to unravel that onion layer of each person and having that ability to show their gift. As a personal trainer, people are always like, oh, you got me to get my abs, or oh, you got me to dead hang for 10 minutes. It's like, I didn't do any of that. I didn't. That was always in you, but you're the one that did the work. I just showed you how to do it. I've gotten there before. I've walked through the fire, and I can show you how to get through the fire. And maybe if I'm a really good sensei or a senpai or a mentor or a coach or a parent, I can hold your hand through it, but you're going to do the work. And I love when you mentioned that you saw your daughter, because I call those parental dividends as a parent, because when they blow your mind and they do things that they see you doing and you don't intentionally try to instill in them, right? It's not like I'm like, okay, you got to be good at math. You got to go good at math. You got to read. You got to read. It's like when you catch them out of the corner of your eye and they are reading and they want to, right? And then for them to go and, hey, what do you want to do after school? Let's go get a book at Barnes and Noble. Like, that's powerful. Like, whoa, I didn't force that kid to do that. And it's like, I think a great mentor, a great sensei or an instructor or coach can do that. A great leader can get the best out of us because they do see that within us. And I think you've been lucky that you had that one person to help you. And I think I've heard you also say that there have been many people, many conversations, many connections that have helped change the trajectory of your life. But you have to be willing. You can't block that. You can't fight that. You have to be able to be like, okay, I have to be open and vulnerable enough to be able to accept the help when somebody puts their hand out. Is there a group of people that you kind of gravitate to that bring you up? Like a certain set of connections that have like, do you hang out with Eeyores or do you find yourself gravitating to people who lift you up, believe in you, trust you, and that you could call or text right now and they would be there for you?
You know, I would say my circle is not big, but it is tight. And as you're saying that, I think of one of my really good friends, Teresa, who actually was one of my former basketball players. I coached her in high school, and now we are like family. In fact, her kids call me Aunt Sandy. And when I first started thinking about doing American Ninja Warrior, it's been, almost 10 years almost now. But when I first started thinking about doing it, we'd seen it on TV, and I thought, boy, that looks fun. I think I could do that. But then I thought, that's crazy. That's nuts. I was 39 at the time. And
this is last year.
Yeah, I've been 29 for a long time too. So I'm sitting there and I just couldn't shake this feeling that I was supposed to go apply for this show, do this crazy thing, and be on American Ninja Warrior. And I fought it, and I fought it. I tend to do that. You know, I get these gut feelings.
So you do fight it, all right.
I do fight it a little. I do, and I just thought that seems nuts, and that's insane. Why would I do that at my age? I'm looking at these mostly all 20-year-olds doing this, and I just couldn't shake the feeling. And so, you know, I looked into the process, and I thought, okay, it needs an application, online application. And the thing is, it's pretty extensive. You have to type a lot of it, and I'm actually a struggling reader. So then the second thing, so I thought, strike one. Number two, you have to do a 2 to 3 minute video. I am not real tech savvy. Strike.
Second that.
Dang it. All right. Then we get to the third one. I think at that point, the show had been on for 9 years. And
this is in the U.S.,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No woman had ever finished a course and hit a buzzer, and over 50,000 people apply for the show. Strike three. Like, what are the odds that that's happening? So then I tried to, not going to do
Rationalize it, yeah.
So I think, I can't shake it. I'm going to call Teresa. I'm going to tell her about this crazy dream and goal and just see what she thinks, because I feel like I'm supposed to be on this show. And so at that time, I think, when a dream is new, I always call that was when my dream was really delicate. And if I take that dream to the wrong person, it is one negative comment, one rude person away from me tossing that garbage. That
talking to yourself one more way out of it.
Going in the garbage.
Right.
I'm not going to do this. And this is where you need a Teresa in your life. And so I call up Teresa and I said, Teresa, I'm thinking about doing this really crazy thing. I know it's insane, but she goes, what? And I said, well, I'm thinking about applying for this show on NBC called American Ninja Warrior. She's like, sweet, let's go. What do you need? And I just thought, I could not have brought that dream to a better person. I just envisioned her like just holding it and cupping it in her hands. Yeah. Because at that point it was delicate, it was fragile. And in the wrong hands, that would have stopped right there. And I just think, holy cow, if I'd taken that to the wrong person, I would not be where I am today. And I, more importantly, wouldn't be who I am today had I taken that dream to the wrong person, because it has completely changed my life being on that show. And so she helped me do the submission video, and we submitted it into producers. I thought, what are the odds, right? What are the odds? 50,000 people at this point were applying for it. Now it's even more, and now it's like 70,000. But at that point, it's like 50. What are the odds? What are the odds? Well, I got the call the first year.
That's so great. Well, and I the same with like writing a book. I had to have the support of my wife, right? And I had to have support of a friend. When I first got the book back from the editor, it came back with more candy cane red on the mark. And I was like, oh my gosh.
That's a lot of no's.
That's a lot of no's. And that was like a gut punch. And I was like, oh man. And a buddy of mine told me, he was like, and I actually had him on the podcast. He goes, do you want to be a writer or do you want to be a wannabe writer? And I was like, well, I want to be a writer. And he goes, well, then take what the editor said and change it. Because if she didn't understand it, your audience won't understand it. Your readers won't understand it. And I was like, wow. But it was like, I needed to take it to the person who knew how to lead me through that and believed in me and my message enough that I was like, it was a safe place to go to. And having that safe spot, whether that's your spouse or whether that's your family or a great friend, like I need a Teresa apparently, right? Or if it's your sensei or if it's a coach or like a mentor, people need to have someone that they can talk to other people because you're not alone. And maybe they know somebody who's gone through the fire you want to go through, or maybe they have gone through the fire and they will want to help you. And I think that's very, very impactful. And you have not only, you've gone through, you had your dojo experience where you were going to go to the Olympics, but then you moved. And then all of a sudden it's like, that was a big no. That was like, oh, here's a wall in front of you. I'd love for you to hit on that. But then you get into basketball, which opened a whole new opportunity set for you where you meet so many new friends and teammates, right? And you start to impact people. But then all of a sudden you have a knee surgery or you're getting an American Ninja Warrior and you have this knee surgery and there's this other wall. And it's like, throughout your life, you've come up to barriers, and every time it's just that wall that you have. I'm going to call it the American Ninja Warrior wall, where it's like it's just a wall that you haven't figured out how to get up yet, and you haven't quit. And I love the catchwords and the phrase words, especially as a speaker. And I'm sure you know this. It's like when we apply for events or we apply for a speaking, they're like, "Well, what do you talk on? You know, what are your specifics?" And we really need somebody on resilience. And it's like those are the buzzwords. But in reality, that is what navigating no is all about. It's about you yourself being able to make it through any obstacle or challenge that you face and finding a way through it and not having the ability to get through it yet. And I love that you mentioned that. I think that's one of the most powerful lines that you have. That Sandy, you were born to do this for sure. I love that. Through the adventure from your life starting and hitting, having to move and taking the Olympics out of it and then getting into basketball. And then I also would love to touch on when you feel yourself fall on one of the obstacles, you know it's over. What goes through your mind at that moment? Like, what does it feel like not to hit the buzzer?
Well, unfortunately, I know that feeling really well. That's the thing on the show. The failure rate is pretty much 100% at some point. I mean, even with the males that have made it to, say, stage 4, they've only had a handful of people ever finish that. So we pretty much all end with a no. We all end with a no. We end up soaking wet with a big, fat no. And, I think I would say when I've hit the water, it has had different meanings and thoughts over the years. The first time I hit the water, my very first season, didn't get any airtime, went out on the second obstacle. I had high hopes of I'm going to hit the buzzer. I'm going to hit the buzzer first year. Let's go, girl. And I was so naive because I had no skill set. What was I thinking? I was pretty strong, though. And I hit the water.
I know your arms are bigger than mine.
I'm hiding my halves. Those are even better. But I hit the water after just the second obstacle. And that year, because of where I was mentally, I honestly was so devastated. I was so grateful it was water because my eyes were filling with tears. And I was like, I do not want to cry on national TV.
Yeah.
So I got it together enough to go back to the vacation rental that we had at the time. And I went into the bedroom, closed the door, laid in the bed, and I cried. I was just devastated. I felt like I had let everyone down.
Sure.
Like for me, it was like, I am doing this as a testimony to all the people that have helped me change my family tree, that have helped me change my life. So for me, I put all this pressure on myself of like, this is a thank you to all of you. And I was so emotional and I had all this pressure, like and then people that flew into, because we filmed in LA that year. So they put all this effort in to get there. And I just felt like one of my greatest fears at that point, and I'm working on this, was disappointing others. And boy, I took that on to the course with me. And I did. I fell in the water. And I remember that night being so hard. And I let myself have an entire night. I wallowed. I wallowed. I cried. I sat in there, felt sorry for myself. And then I thought, I'm going to do that for one night. I was like, Sandy, you got one night.
You gave yourself one time.
I said, you got one night.
Uh-huh.
And then I got up the next morning. I got on my phone. I Googled, where's the closest park? And I went to the park. They had monkey bars and they had some other little things. And I was like, this started my comeback. I started swinging on things, how you're not supposed to use them in a park. I started jumping from bench to bench.
Sound like
and
my
I'm
son.
like, this is the start of my comeback. This is it. Right here, right now, right today. And so I used that as fuel. I was like, that is not going to ever happen again. I'm going to keep working. I'm going to build a skill set. I'm going to do some things differently so I can go into this not just strong and in shape, but actually have the skill sets that are needed for the sport. So I spent a whole year. I'm like, here we go. I'm training. Felt really good going to season 2. I was like, now I've got the skill set. I stayed in great shape. I'm ready for this. And then I went out on the second obstacle again. And that time it was more embarrassed when I hit the wall.
Sure.
I was so embarrassed. I thought, are you kidding me? Now I've been training for over a year, specifically for ninja, traveling the country, going to actual ninja gyms, getting on stuff, getting ready for this. And I went on the second obstacle. So I was so embarrassed.
Yeah. Completely different emotions.
Oh, it was very different.
Yeah.
Devastated.
Stakes are the same. 2 different emotions,
Yeah.
2 different experiences.
Yeah. And then the third year, I thought, okay, this is it. I'm going to do it. And then I got hurt. And I had multiple surgeries on my knee.
On your knee.
And then I rehabbed those, which was a whole process. And then we're getting ready to film. I thought, okay, I can get my shot here. And my first competition back, I go to jump at a spider wall, tore the ligament in my thumb. I thought, are you freaking kidding me? Are you kidding me? Like, this could not be
meant to do
more
this?
unfair. And then
Yeah.
I started to question is this really where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to be doing? Because if it is, this makes no sense. You've brought me here to fail, and then get injured. Like, I was mad. I was pissed, actually. I was mad.
So now we're on to our third
Yeah.
emotion.
Yep.
Sure.
And so that year passes, and it was really some dark days rehabbing. But I just had a little hope that I thought, geez, someday the day will come when my doctor will say you're released. Go back and do what you were meant to do. And so that day came, and I thought, okay. And what was so amazing about all these no's, the no of failure, the no of injuries, is that when I got to that season, the next season, so that was season 11, it was such a different frame of mind. I could tell that I was actually now really ready for a yes. And so I get to that start line, and I remember thinking, this is like not about anybody else but me. This is me and my journey. And that breakthrough moment there and the thought of this, Sandy, who you become in this journey is more important than what you accomplish in this journey. So I let go of all the results. I let go of the pressure of not wanting to disappoint people and wanting to please people, embarrassment, frustration,
Anger.
all of those emotions that I had, and just thought, I'm just going to be in this moment. And I know I'm going to grow and learn regardless of whether I go out on the second obstacle again or if I finish this course and hit a buzzer. And it was the first time where I let go of all that of the results and just said, just be in this moment.
Yeah.
This is where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be doing. But it's the growth, not necessarily result. It's the growth that you're having. Look at who you've become in this 5 years of failure, injury, and here. And it was one of those magical moments where everything slows down. And like right before I go out there, I hear this song about how it's a Macklemore song about tonight's your night. And And I thought, damn straight, I think it is. And I'm in the Tacoma Dome, which is where I first won nationals. And Sensei first told me that you can go to the Olympics. He
right.
changed. And so I thought, could
the winds were
this be
in your
written
sail. Yeah.
any better? If you were going to write a book, here this little girl is back in the Tacoma Dome 20 some years later and on American Ninja Warrior now. And so I get up there and I go through, and it was like literally just in the moment. I'm on this first obstacle. And then I go to the second, and I'm having fun, but it's like I'm in slow motion. It's the weirdest thing. Crowd's going crazy. You can hear them, but you can't. And I'm just like one obstacle at a time. Whatever happens, like I'm good. I know I'm going to come out better. And it wasn't until, if people go watch, I grab the top of the wall and I'm about to hoist myself over because the buzzer's on top.
You wave or something
I
like that.
grabbed the top of the wall and it hit me. I was like, holy hell, like this is happening.
Yeah.
Like you actually, 5 years, you felt like this is what you're supposed to do, but you got 5 years of no, 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 no. Yes.
It only took one.
And when
yes.
I grabbed that wall, I started to go up. I had it with both hands. The no, no, no. And I turned and I flexed. And I was like, wow. And that was the moment, the only time that whole run where it was like, I'm hitting the buzzer.
Yeah.
I did it. And I just think I was so proud of myself for just sticking with it, whether I hit the buzzer or not. And so then I hit the buzzer. I was so excited. I think I hit the buzzer about 5 times. I was like, I'm just making sure, guys. But just the stick with it.
Yeah.
The no's, the no's, the no's. Are you willing to take a lot of no's till your yes,
Yeah.
till your magical moment?
Yeah.
And
And
I
you
think
never know when that will be.
you don't.
It could be tomorrow. It could be in 5 years. It could be after you fail 7 times.
Yeah. But I do look back on that and I think, man, had I hit the buzzer the first year, had that been my yes, this story would have sucked. Well,
Sure.
No, it wouldn't have sucked. It will still been a pretty good story. I mean, I was
Right.
38, hit a buzzer on American
Right.
Ninja Warrior. It still would have been a good story, but not a great story.
Yeah.
Not after 5 years of no, 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 and sticking with it. Now this can be a lesson for people that I can use
Yes.
to impact lives.
100%.
You're going to get no's, no's, no's. But if you hold on long enough, and if you feel in your gut this is where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to do, I think God and the universe will align and you will get it if that's where you're supposed to be. So stick with it. But here's the other part. Had I got a yes that first year, I was not in a position where I had done enough healing and growth with my story that I could have made an impact. I wasn't confident enough to share my story. I hadn't crafted and really healed from my stories. Had I gotten a yes, it would have been nice. I would have hit a buzzer and that would have been a nice story. But it wouldn't have had the impact that it's had because I had 5 years of growth, not just in ninja, but in healing.
Sure.
And now I can go back and I can use my stories. I can take all the crap that I went through as a kid and now use it to impact lives because I'm in a position where I'm confident enough, I'm brave enough, I've crafted these stories. I had 5 years that I needed before I got the yes. And now I got the yes and I have a stage now to share the stories. Where had I been here, I would have gotten a stage, but what would I have done with it? So now I look back, and as much I am so competitive, I look and I hate losing and I hate failing that. But
then
I
I'm
look
glad
back,
you got the TEDx spot versus me. I like that. I'm glad we're not enemies.
But I look back on that, I thought, God, if I'd gotten a yes, it wouldn't have had the impact that it did have getting it 5 years later. And now I get to share my stories, and I was in a place where I was ready. So sometimes I think our no's are just like the no, not yet. And I feel like in the big picture up there, God was like, no, just not yet. I put that in you for a reason, and it's going to get there, but not yet. I've got to do all this prep in you, and then you're going to get your yes. Stick with it. Stick with it. Go through the no's. Keep battling through the no's. And there were times where I'm like, no, what? Why would I keep failing? Why would I keep failing,
Putting this
getting
pressure
hurt?
on myself. And
Yes.
why?
Why would I feel so called to do this if I'm just going to fail and get hurt? Like, it seems stupid at the time. And now I look back, I'm like, woo.
Because
I did
the
not
yes was
see the whole
worth
picture.
it.
Yeah.
The yes was worth it.
Absolutely.
And you did. Everyone kind of can experience that, but a lot of people quit. And I think the only real way to fail at something is either you quit or you die because you haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah.
And as long as you keep going and you're putting in that resilience and you're staying gritty and you're going after it. It's like you have to hit those no's because eventually you will hit a yes. And I think staying true to that is so powerful and so impactful because you didn't quit and you went through every emotional stage and you battled it and you fought it and you were like, I'm going to do this. When you were doing it and you were hitting obstacle, challenge after challenge, you do this. What is that? I want to know what that is. Is that you saying, okay, I've got this? Is it a prayer? Is it my family's watching me? Are you going, oh, I could embarrass myself, or I've got to remind myself, I've got to let everything go, like you mentioned, and it's just about me. Because I'm just going to show up and I'm going to control what I can control and anything else that I can't control. What is this?
Well, now I'm thinking of all the times, when do I do that?
Usually right after the obstacle, after you pass the obstacle.
Yeah. I know I can distinctly remember up on the wall doing that. And that was the moment when I almost started crying because it was just the realization that, man, this has been a hard road, girl. It's been a hard road, but you stuck with it. And so I think it's a moment of those moments when you feel so stinking proud of yourself. Like, I just did that. I just did that. Or I think at some points when I've done that, I think some of it is probably relief of like, you're up there like, whoo, didn't get wet on that one. One down, 5 to go.
Exactly.
So I think it's probably dependent on the moment. I do a lot of times, I know I do that when I just get so overwhelmed sometime with gratitude of just feeling like, is this really my life?
Grateful.
Oh, so grateful. Of like, I just sometimes can't even believe it. And I know I've looked at my kids like that. Like, how do I have these incredible human beings in front of me? And I think sometimes I get just so overwhelmed with gratitude for the life that I have and the opportunities that I have and the things that have come along in my life. And I don't know, I think sometimes I wonder if because I had such a tough upbringing that the lens with which I see life is a little different than most people. And it's just a level of gratitude that I can't even explain, where there are times where, and it's different things. Like I just drove over the Canadian Rockies and I was getting emotional at just the beauty of the mountains and the streams and all that. And I just think I have I see the lens, I think I see the world a little differently because I've been through so much crap in life that I look and I'm just so grateful, grateful for everything. I mean, I think, running in the mountains this morning with my dogs, and I'm just so grateful for my health. I'm so grateful for my 2 babies, my 2 dogs, and that we get to go do this. And, I look at my kids and how grateful I am that I get to raise 3 incredible human beings. And so I think a lot of that, I think when I do that, I'm often thinking, I'm just so grateful.
That's
so
powerful,
grateful.
Sandy. That is impactful. I think that I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours about going for your black belt and like what that means. And it's just, your story is so impactful. And I know that you do belong on stage with those other great speakers. And it is my goal that I'm going to set with you right now that we are going to share a stage together, whether that is at the same time or not. Where can people find you now if they want to get in contact with you? Because I know that after listening to this, people are going to be like, wow, I want to know more about her. And she does make an impact because your platform is big. And you are making that on different people. And so how can they find you and what are you up to? I know that you have a book coming out. Can you please tell us about that?
Absolutely. Thank you. Probably the best way to find me is just going to sandyzimmerman.co. Not com.
Okay.
SandyZimmerman.co.
I love that. .uk.
Yeah.
Right.
Someone bought the com. They don't use it. I don't know how those domains work, but why would they do that? And then they want $3,000 for it.
Yeah.
I'm I don't know how that works. Someone was smarter than me. They bought my name, bought the com, and I'm like, you know what? I'll do the co, but everybody remember it's co.
Fair enough. All right.
All right. So sandyzimmerman.co, and I have all my links. I'm probably most active on Instagram.
Okay.
I try to post there, and I really try to get through the messages and reply back to comments. I do have Facebook. That's a public one that people can go on and find me there. So that's probably the best place to try to get a hold of me. There's my emails on there so people can reach out to me, and I do go through all of those.
And you are very amiable. Like when I reached out to get you on here, you were like, yeah, I was your competitor once and I beat you. Yeah, that's excellent. What about your book? Tell us about that.
Oh, I am so excited. So that is a whole story in itself. So someday you can have me back on and I can tell you the story behind the book.
As long as it came back candy cane and you didn't stop. That's my message.
Definitely didn't stop. Well, I think it was one of those moments in life where I'm called to do something and I fight it. And so I felt this calling of like, Sandy, you need to write a book. Your story's going to change lives. Your stories will change lives. And I still to this day am a struggling reader. And so I laughed at that thought of like, why would I be called to write a book? I can barely read a book. Mm-hmm. I cannot hear vowel sounds very well, and I am just a struggling reader, and I have a hard time picturing things when I read them. And so I get this gut feeling of like, Sandy, you need to write a book. Your story is going to change lives. And I'm like laughing. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that is not going to happen. So to give you an example, I was almost 40 before I read my first book cover to cover. And the only reason I could read it was Hunger Games, was because I watched the movie first.
Sure.
So I could have a visual, because there's something in there that is missing when I read. I cannot picture things. So like if you read a book, you can picture, say, the green grass, the nice pond, the ducks at the pond, whatever. I can't picture it. If at best it maybe is in black and white and I might see a little pond, but I can't picture it with detail. So what I discovered with the Hunger Games is that if I watch the movie first, it gives me enough of a visual. And as long as it's an interesting book, I can actually read. And so when I felt like I was supposed to write a book, I thought that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Let's call someone who can't read well and let's tell them they need to write a book.
Sure.
And so I fought it and fought it and fought it. And I thought, let me just see what it looks like. What if I got a ghostwriter? Mm-hmm. Because I can speak. I've overcompensated for my lack of reading. I can speak.
Sure.
So I thought, what if I got a ghostwriter, tell them my stories, and they can put it in book format? So I start to do that with a guy I met on A&W. Uh-huh. And it comes back, and I'm like, it's good, but it's not great. It doesn't sound like me. And I felt like it needed to sound like me.
Sure.
So I kind of...
It's your story.
And so we actually... I thought, we put the book on hold. I was like, this isn't what I was thinking. And I'm sitting after one of my talks, and a good friend, this is where you need a Teresa, another good friend I have is an Alla. And I get done with one of my talks.
I have a long list going here.
And Alla comes over, and she's just like, wow. It was like where I talked, and it was like you hit it out of the park kind of talk. Mm-hmm. And I knew it. I mean, people were laughing, people were crying, standing ovation. It was amazing. And so Alla comes over, she's like, wow. You were meant to do that, because she'd never seen me on a stage. And she says, and I told her about, hey, I thought about writing a book. I had a ghostwriter, but it didn't work out. And she's like, Sandy, you're already writing your book. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, it's in your talks.
Yeah.
I was like, what? I was like, oh my gosh, I do write my own talks.
Yeah.
Because she'd asked me, like, do you write your own talks? I'm like, yeah, I write my own talks. She's like, you've already written your book. It's in your talks. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So then I go back to the guy who's a ghostwriter.
Yeah.
And I said, I think this is the direction. I think I need to give you my talks and you need to edit them so it's readable in a book format. But I think I need to give you my talks, give you video recordings. So if there's body language things, but I think I've already written my book. I need you as an editor. And I thought, God, is this going to be an ego thing where he's going to be like, honey, I'm a ghostwriter. I'm not an editor. So I just thought, I feel like this is the right thing. So I go to him. I said, I know it didn't work out as a ghostwriter, but what do you think about being my editor? And I give you the videos. I give you my talks. I think those are the book. And he sits there, and there's a long, awkward pause. And I'm like, oh my gosh, is he going to hang up on me?
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and I'm just sitting in it because I thought, I'm just going to put that out there. And he goes, you know what, Sandy? He goes, I'm actually a better editor than I am a ghostwriter. I'm like, what? What?
Oh.
No ego.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? So, and he's like, let's do it. I think that's the right direction. So we've spent the last year doing that. I do the talk. He sees the body language because there's some things you can't
Sure.
communicate in writing, right?
100%.
And I write it. I give him my scripts for my talks, and now he has crafted that in and helped me with the editing piece.
That's fantastic.
And so the book's coming out. It's called Get Out of the Car.
Get out of the car. Okay.
And it is my stories. It is 11 stories and geared around different moments in my life that have been game changers. Lots of no's
Yeah.
that eventually turned to yeses, and how I did that. And I'm just so excited. I felt this calling to write this book for so long. I felt this calling for so long to share my story and to be at a place now where I first have the courage and confidence to do it, but I also have a great team. I could not have done this alone without
Confidence
my
team.
husband.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's the behind the scenes hero making this work. My kids as an inspiration. You know, Bobby as the one writing this book with me and making it all come to life and come together in a readable format. And it just, everything in my whole life has taken a team effort. I mean, all these people at different moments that has come along. And so that's a big part of what this book is for, is a thank you. Like from the bottom of my heart, a thank you to all the people that have come into my life over the years that have said, I believe in you. You have potential.
Yeah.
And have breathed life into me so I could become the person I am today. And still evolving to become. I'm a work in progress. But it's really a thank you to all those people. And I'm so excited. And, you know, I think the stories, I agree. I think the stories are going to change lives. I think they're going to impact lives. And it's written in a way that each chapter can be a standalone chapter. So if you're a struggling reader, and I made it a book I could read. It's simple, easy to read, and it has pictures.
Pictures. Mine has one picture at the very end. I love it.
I told Bobby, I said, here's the deal. If I can't read this book, this is not in the right direction, because that was kind of where it was at first when he first started doing the ghostwrite. I said, it needs to have pictures. I cannot picture things. I look at this book, it has too many words. I would not read it.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to have pictures. So every chapter has at least a couple pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And so people will get to actually see the places I'm talking about, the people I'm talking about, the lessons that I've learned, actually see the pictures.
You talk about vivid. That's a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
100%.
It's a book I'd read. So that
I
says
love
enough.
that.
It's easy enough. It's engaging. It has wonderful lessons. You're going to feel things.
Get out of your
You're going to cheer
car.
for me. You're going to laugh. You're going to cry, I think, and hopefully share it with other people.
Now, I know what the title is coming from, so people are going to have to read your book to know that. But I know that, knowing your story and hearing you speak and knowing you personally now, I know that you are going to change those lives. And that book, I am sure, is going to do the same thing. So I'm wishing you the best luck.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and telling us that it's like every one of us is rejected and fail. And it's like, just keep that going. And we all need a theme song that says, Sandy, you were born to do this. So I love it. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on, Sandy.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Awesome.
Start of a great relationship, and I'm holding you to that. We're getting on a stage together at some point.
Deal. 100%. Thanks
right.
a lot.
Thank you.